Welcome back, Camden Catholic. So, my first 8th kids, y'all are about to come in. We'll probably get to about this point in class. I know my second period, y'all got a little further than this, but just kind of hang on with me a little bit. This will be a good review for you. But let's go ahead and jump right back into it. So, we left off in class talking about the death of Philip II and how Alexander is going to be placed on the throne, right? And we talked about how Alexander really wasn't that great yet. He was only about 18, 16 years old for all we know. And then also his father is the one who conquered all of Greece, not him, okay? So, big thing about him, though, is that he was, his mother was one of Philip's 7 different wives. Her name was Olympias, okay? She outmaneuvered the other wives and placed the child Alexander on the throne, right? So, big thing is, though, is Alexander held on to all of Greece until he was about 20. And when he turned 20, he decided that he would look across the Aegean and point out the people that his father wanted to conquer, but never got the chance to, right? The Persians. So he created a huge army, amassed a very large group of ships and men to cross the Aegean and try to conquer the entire Persian Empire, which today is like 1.5 times the size of the continental United States. All right, so like huge area, absolutely huge area. So now, he wants to try and conquer this area. It's 2,000 miles long, and it spans all the way from Egypt all the way over to India. Okay? Now, let's keep going, though. So, Persia, though, he decided on a good time to go, because Persia was very, very weak from a lot of different weak rulers. However, Alexander battled his way through and conquered the entirety of the Persian Empire, right? He did it in over 300 different battles. Now, one of the craziest battles is actually when he came up against a bunch of guys on war elephants. Alexander never once lost a battle, even when he had soldiers mounted on war elephants, because he actually was the one that came up with the clever idea, don't attack the elephant, attack the driver, right? Because actually, elephants are much more non-combative by nature. Nature. There we go. By nature, right? So, he is going to successfully take over this huge swath of land. But before setting out again, unfortunately, Alexander is going to unexpectedly die from a sudden fever, all right? He had 3 different wives when he passed away, and over the next 300 years, okay, so when he was dying, he said, leave it to the best. Listen to that. Write that down really quick. In quotes and underlines, they were like, Alexander, who do we let rule the empire? Who rules over this whole thing? He said, leave it to the best. And what happened is that actually he left it to his 3 strongest generals. But over the next 300 years, the empire slowly fell apart because men were battling for control, okay? Now, really quickly though, let's keep going. The era that he's going to usher into history is going to be called the Hellenistic Age, the Hellenistic period, which was a giant blend of Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian cultures. It was a great golden age. Whoa, calm down, Rybacki, I hear you, right? Cultural diffusion. That is exactly right. And we all know that when cultural diffusion happens, amazing things come along with it. So new instances of art, technology, and I get it, Katrina, new inventions, right? I hear y'all. All kinds of new stuff is going to come along with it, right? The Hellenistic period is so great. Circle that word a couple of times. Hellenistic Age, okay? So, really cool things about the Hellenistic period, though, is actually the capital of the Hellenistic Empire was not in Greece or Macedonia. He had it moved to Alexandria, Egypt, okay, where Cleopatra would eventually be from. So that was actually the capital of the new empire, and it boasted every single item from Greek marble all the way to Arabic spices. It actually had over 1 million people in it. Really quickly, so you can wrap your head around it. Athens at its height only had 40,000 people in it. Alexandria, Egypt, at its height, had over 1 million people in it. Just to give you an understanding of how greatly large this city was compared to the things that came before it. So, a couple of really interesting things, actually, speaking of cultural diffusion. These are what? What are those? Come on now. Good job, Tavon. Those are mummies, right? That is the sarcophagus that they exist in. What's wrong with this mummy? Egyptians do not have skin that fair, all right? So, that is actually a Greek man who has been mummified. So we can actually see right now the differences in cultural diffusion and how those things spread. That again is another Greek man that was mummified. The ideas of how Egyptian mummification and Greek burial customs came together and created new ways of life and new ideas and new art and new crazy other things, okay? So let's keep going. But women were also even revered during the Hellenistic period as leaders, okay? Poets, philosophers, even rulers. Cleopatra VII, actually, during the height of the Roman Empire above them, when the Hellenistic period was actually coming to a close and the empire was slowly falling to pieces, She was the last great, like, female ruler of the Hellenistic Empire. Actually, apparently was dating Julius Caesar the whole time. Who knew? All right, anyway, so we'll actually talk about that whole thing later on. But also, the Hellenistic period is going to see the first mapping of the solar system. One of the Hellenistic actually that brought around the two models of the universe. Heliocentric being the sun-centered universe, and geocentric being the Earth-centered universe. Also, great advances in medicine are going to pop up. A guy named Hippocrates is going to bring around structured ideas of medicine and how the Hippocratic Oath says that you should always treat the sick no matter what their financial situation is, and that if someone is sick, you literally have the obligation to help them out, okay? So Hippocrates, very, very cool person. Came from the Hellenistic period, right? Also, this is another really famous piece of art. The Venus de Milo was believed to have been constructed during the Hellenistic period. Seen as one of the last great pieces of classical sculpture, right? So even though her arms are broken off. Now, another big thing, oh, sorry about that. And then the last big guy to come out of the Hellenistic period, his name was Archimedes, all right? Not the little owl from Sword in the Stone, but the inventor, okay? We'll talk about him a little bit more tomorrow when we get into, like, things he invented, but he was a great inventor of the Hellenistic period. He invented the Archimedes screw, which is actually this thing down here. It's the very first well system that brought water from a lower area all the way up, and I'll show you how it works tomorrow. He also came up with theories on density. Apparently, he came up with the idea of Eureka! Because apparently he was sitting in his bathtub when he came up with the ideas on density of why things float and also the displacement of water. And apparently he jumped out of his bathtub and ran down the street naked, shouting, Eureka, Eureka, I understand something. Because of displacement of water due to, like, when he would get in the bathtub, the water level would rise, and when he would get out, the water level would drop. All right, so anyway. He also apparently came up with this really cool heat ray thing that I'll actually show you tomorrow. No, come back. That I'll actually show you tomorrow as well, where he actually came up with the idea of a concave lens reflecting the sunlight and actually setting ships on fire out in the water. Now, a lot of people, there are accounts of this heat ray actually being in existence during the Hellenistic period, but we have yet to find one. And we have yet to actually hear of any really successful test of one. The Mythbusters tried it and it didn't work. So, because that would take a large concentration of heat. But, stepping forward though, the fact that he understood that a concave lens would actually focus sunlight and create heat is still very, very impressive, right? It's actually focusing the UV radiation from the sun into central focal points and actually heating everything up in the atoms. So it's very, very cool stuff, right? So anyway, but that's going to be it for today. So you need to know Hellenistic period, great positivity, great cultural diffusion, like all kinds of great stuff, all started by Alexander the Great, right? So tomorrow, you'll be getting your first study guide. Tuesday, we have your first test. Monday, we'll have a review game. Can't wait to see you guys then, Camden Catholic. Y'all have a good evening.